Blessed is the man that walketh not in the counsel of the ungodly, nor standeth in the way of sinners, nor sitteth in the seat of the scornful. But his delight is in the law of the I am, and in his law doth he meditate day and night. He shall be like a tree planted by the rivers of water, that bringeth forth his fruit in his season. His leaf also shall not wither, and whatsoever he doeth shall prosper. Psalms chapter 1, verses 1 through 3. This book of the law shall not depart out of thy mouth, but thou shalt meditate therein day and night, that thou mayest observe to do according to all that is written therein. For then thou shalt make thy way prosperous, then thou shalt have good success. Oshay chapter 1 verse 8. Some know him as Joshua. Deliver me from the hands of evil spirits who have sway over the thoughts of men's hearts, and let them not lead me astray from thee, my God. Establish thou me in my seed, that we go not astray henceforth and forever. Jubilees chapter 12 and verse 20. Yes, we thank God for you, you and you. We thank God for you, you and you. And we're in the law. Yes, all praises to the Most High for the law. His law is pure. His law, they sung about it all the time, about the law of the Most High. And we thank God for the law. Yes, his law is beautiful. Yes, and we also thank God for those of you, you and you have been with us since the beginning, and those of you who have been with us henceforth and for up till now. We thank God for you, and those of you that have subscribed, as well as those of you who are about to subscribe, calling those things that are not as though they are. Yes, we're in the law of the I am, whom he called himself. During the time Moses said, who shall I say sent me? He said, say I am that I am sent you. And so that's what we say in English. That's what it's supposed to mean. I am that I am. And we thank God for you, you and you. Also, we're just praising God for all he's doing throughout the world, how he's shaping things for the children of Noah, and most of all for the children of Jacob. Yes, we thank God for that, because all children of Noah have fell under, should I say, the curse of the law. And still, because they did have a portion of the law, Shem, Ham, and Japheth had a portion of the law. Or should I say, they had the first laws. Laws were added to by the Most High when Moses came about. But there were laws that they did not adhere to before the flood. And so books were written. The book of Enoch, the book of Jasher, and the book of Jubilees. These books were written. They were told. Enoch even had many of them. He wrote a lot of notes. You say writing wasn't back then? Yes, it was. And you have to be careful about these time spans the heathen give to you, because their tests might not be what they should be. But we should trust God in all things. Even his law. God's law is everything. You even hear when we talk in the book of the law, his law. Even in Psalms 1 it says his law. Whose law he's talking about? Not the law of Moses. He's talking about the law of the I am. He's talking about the law of the Creator. That spirit that moved upon the water, that law. That means it was already having our hearts. We already know most of it because we call it a moral law. Yes, we do. It's been here since the beginning. Now, we're in the book of Exodus. We're discussing the law again, and we're Exodus chapter, where am I? 19, yes, 19. Okay. Now, chapter 19, and we skip down to, I think we were in 19, yeah. Not Exodus, we're in the book of Leviticus. I'm sorry, the book of Leviticus. I was just reading it in chapter 19, yes. Okay. That looks more like it. Now, it says in Leviticus chapter 19, we're going to go to verse 2. Let's start at verse 2. Yes, verse 2. Because we skip and miss on these laws. And these laws, regardless of all the laws that you will encounter, if you would only keep the laws that God had prescribed. You have those of the Christian faith and other people, oh, there's 100 and something laws. There are only 10. Or they're only the preamble of what God give of his laws. It may not be 10 because they've joined some together. There's not 10 commandments. And all laws fall under those laws. See, God's wiser than you think he is. The I am is wiser than you think the I am is, because it's so hard to say just the name, because we cannot, just like the translators, they add a gender to the Most High. The Most High has no gender, as his angels do not have a gender. But they choose to be the male. They choose of the masculine side of things, put it that way. What we call the masculine. See, we have in this society and generations, we have learned to assign labels to things. And this is where you come out with many of your labels that you have. Even your medicines, they were assigned to you by labels. You said some medicines in your own languages, but then come the colonizer. He says, it's my language and my studies and what you have to think about, or nothing. And some have taken them on to being English, but most of this scriptures were written in languages that we do not understand, and they were translated by people that make it ambiguous to us. So he says, speak unto all the congregation of the children of Israel, and say unto them, ye shall be holy, for I, the I am your God, am holy. Clean. We all know what clean is. We all know what things we shouldn't be eating. We know all things that we shouldn't be doing that doesn't make no sense. From family to copulation to the way we deal with each other. Cleanness. Holy. Not being evil. Lest evil come upon you. Yes, God does create evil for the evil and for the chastisement of those that have decided they want to be evil against his commandments, that have agreed that they will obey them. He says now in verse, ye shall fear, that means respect, every man his mother and his father, and keep my Sabbaths. That is not an extra law, that is the same law. Thou shalt what? Honor thy mother and thy father. I am that I am your God. In other words, this is a call that results in death. If the father or the mother puts you before the congregation in this land of Israel. This was before they went to Israel. If you cannot obey your father and your mother, who can you obey? You will not obey God. No, you wouldn't. As many are today. And why does the heathen get into the middle of your family's affairs? You cannot spank your children. Many of you will not kill them because the Bible says thou killest them not. The Israelites did not beat their children to death. That is a deranged, should I say, idiotic man. You might give him a little sting here and there to let them know that you really mean what you mean. It will let them know to respect pain, to respect the consequences of their actions. And therefore they might not do it. So this is why God reiterated the laws, so that they can be a measure of what is holy and what is unholy, what is right and what is unright. This is why he's done this. He says, now, to be holy, what does he mean? Turn ye not unto idols, nor make yourselves molten gods. I am that I am your God. In other words, thou shalt not make any images. He makes it plain here, even plainer, as he gives this part in the book of Leviticus, in this time span. This is the book to the Levites. Leviticus, Levite. That's what it means, real. This is just some heathenistic label they put on it. Leviticus, it's Roman, or I don't know, something like that. But either way, the book of Levites. Turn not to idols, nor make yourself molten gods. I am your God. Verse 5. If ye offer a sacrifice or peace offering unto the I am, ye shall offer it at your own will. And it shall be eaten the same day ye offer it on the morrow. And if you do the feast of harvest, the feast of first fruits, the feast of this, the feast of that, you will eat all of the feast. There will nothing be left. And if you do not eat it all, bread, scraps, whatever, he says burn it. If you call yourself going with a Hebrew camp or some people that's having a dinner, this is what God prescribes of it. I can't eat no more. And you put it in your refrigerator for leftovers. No, that's going against the commandment of the Most High. This is why it's so beautiful to be in the land that God has given unto his people. And it's so good to even, yes, when he begins to overtake the whole world, even the heathen, in his rage and his, should I say, making his own laws, and those things will not be able to resist. For he has to keep those same laws. Yes. So best to do it now than later, as much as you can. And also study, how did they get through the laws? How did they keep the laws in their own way until they got into their own land? Look at the book of Ezra. They were in captivity. The book of Nehemiah, they were in captivity. These are the captivity books, the beginning of the captivities, really. Other than Sennacherib and all the rest of them before him. How did the Israelites maintain their relationship with their God? See, this is where we are now. How do we maintain? God had caused the heathen, took him by the two holes in his nostrils and made him to write these things, but yet alone he has corrupted these things. But the law, no, he hasn't. I'm sorry, God did not corrupt the laws. Your history is corrupted by translation, and also other things are corrupted by translation, but the law still standeth sure. You can read it in Geese or whatever you want to read it in. It's the law, period. And this is what we must go by. Why are we always going to, who the Hebrew Israelites is, and that's it? God called you to come, regardless of who you are. Even strangers during the time where Israel was, after the time of Oshe or Joshua, even that time, you had strangers come to live with Israel because they loved the God of Israel. Yes. The children of Jacob, the Israelites, yes. He says now, Turn ye not to idols, anything. And it says, if you offer a sacrifice, he says, now, don't let it sit, just eat it. If you can't eat it all, burn it. And if it be eaten at all in a day, is abominable. After the third day. And many times you have that also, you have that medical thing, you not to leave anything in your refrigerator after 3 days. Isn't that something? So apparently there's a medical reason too. Now, he says in verse 8, therefore everyone that eateth shall bear his iniquity. Now either way, this can be done, even in your daily lives. And he says, and thou shalt not glean thy vineyards. In other words, if you pick your garden, you pick your fields, don't go back over them again to make sure you got it all, like your cotton growers and your people in the heathen lands. Don't go back over it. No, 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 no. He said, neither shalt thou gather every grape of thy vineyard. Thou shalt leave them for the poor and the stranger. I am that I am your God. You get all that you can while you're going through in your harvest. The poor are going to come anyway. If they notice that, hey, at least we can get something from him, he's going to let us on his land and we can go pick some sweet potatoes, or we can pick some cabbage or lettuce or whatever have you, some plums or whatever, and they won't say nothing if we do it after this time. This is what God is saying. This is how you're going to be blessed. See, the land is cursed because we do not keep these things. We can keep these things. Those of you that are farmers and gardeners and all that, you don't have to get everything that's out in your garden. You don't have to get everything that's out. Leave it for the beasts, the bugs, and everything else. And you till it up after a certain time. Yes, God put that forth too. That your land will be blessed. And he goes back again, ye shall not steal. He's reiterating before they go into the land of Canaan, which will later be known as Israel. Neither deal falsely, neither lie one another to one another. And ye shall not swear by my name falsely. Thou shalt not take the name of the Lord thy God, or the I am, in vain. Neither shalt thou profane the name of thy God, I am that I am. Thou shalt not defraud thy neighbor, neither rob him. Thou shalt not steal. Didn't God say that again? Before they went, he reiterating, this is important. Because that could cause you to go into indentured servitude. See, many people say, oh, they're slaves, they're slaves. Why are they slaves? Either in debt or thievery. There was no rapist slaves. There was no murderer slaves. They were put to death, to put it bluntly before you. But the heathen today and some Israelites and Christians says that's not right. God forgives. There is no forgiveness for a murderer or him that essays a child, woman, man, or whatever. There is no forgiveness. I ain't talking about one that just pats him on the back end, that actually does what he do. Get into them. Invade them. If you get my drift. I ain't talking about one that says, oh, you look nice. I like the way that looks. That's not what he's talking about. That is, you can be beat with stripes or whatever, but other than that, he ain't gonna do it no more once you beat him to halfway to death. Look, he says this, we can keep this today. In other words, once you know somebody have done that, you just put them out of your company. There is no forgiveness for that, because to be unalived is forever. So regardless of how they repent or what they say, they're gone. Why do you think God told David, you will not build my temple because you have blood on your hands? He didn't forget that. I don't know what his judgment was toward David or how he forgave David on that one, but he told him, you're not going to build my temple. The blood of Uriah, a man that really loved his God and his king. He was a Hittite, but Uriah was a man that really loved, and he was a devout man. Yes, that was willing to give his life for either. It really, but you have to realize, David did not, although he was a man after God's own heart, God did not disclose what was his judgment after death. He doesn't disclose that to anyone. But we know that for a murderer or one who SAs. Yes, we do. Now, he says, now, you're not going to swear by his name. You're not going to rob. He says, thou shalt not defraud thy neighbor, neither rob him. The wages of him that is hired shall not abide with thee all night until the morning. In other words, he's saying pay your laborer when he's finished. But we have gone after the way of the heathen. Yes. Yes, he says pay. He says the wages of him that is hired shall not abide with thee all night. In other words, you should have the money right then and there if you're going to hire somebody to do something. Whether it's to work on your house or whether it's to whatever. He's not just talking about big corporations. He's talking about you, the regular person. Give that person their money now. If not, don't ask them to do anything for you. See, the heathen has his laws make us really sin before the Most High, but God knows. He understands. He understands that you still live in captivity. And we should know the law. It's not a bunch of laws. Everybody keep naming laws. These are just to trip you up by the Satans. There are thousands of laws. No, they're not. The law is easy. Just go by the 10. You'll keep all the rest. He's just going into detail on how you shall be judged. Or should I say, what symbolically is the 10 commandments, then you will keep all the rest. Okay? Now, he puts it this way. He says, now, thou shalt not curse the deaf. Don't wish evil upon him who cannot hear. Nor put a stumbling block before the blind, in order to make him fall. This is literal. But thou shalt fear the I am. Why? Because even he or she belongs to the Most High. Created after his order. His order was this. What was the order of the Most High for every one born of a woman? He said of everything that it would multiply after its kind. That's what he said. In other words, humans beget humans. God begets nothing. God creates. He created everything. Or should I say God, the I am that I am, created everything. I'm going to have to get out of that word saying he, because God is a spirit. And everyone that worships the I am must worship the I am in spirit and in truth. It is so hard to get out of that saying he. Although he is of a masculine, God is not a man, period. He doesn't have to copulate. He doesn't have to pee. He doesn't have to use the bathroom. And that strikes out everything else. But God is mainly of a masculine nature, as the heathen would put it. He says, also, he tells us this. See, you read this also in the book of James about all this stuff about. Now the Christians, you cannot keep these. Christians cannot keep the law because they can break it, and then they can say, well, Jesus died for the law. That's a lie. Jesus didn't die for no law. Jesus barely even quoted the law, or the letters that they wrote about this fictitious character. Didn't even hardly quote the law. And if there were books why aren't they on earth now? If there were sayings about what he did, why aren't they there here now? We can show you where the graves of David is and the grave of Solomon and all the rest of them are. They're in Jesus. Yes, that's where they are. There was no Jesus there. Although, those who say they believe in Jesus, which is the majority of Christians and Israelites who've been deceived, I can stand alone on that because I know what I'm talking about. Never existed. Made up. But the law standeth sure. If you obey these things, you will be blessed or made happy. Now, let's continue. He says, ye shall do no unrighteousness in judgment. In other words, you're going to judge. Thou shalt not respect. In other words, you got the Old New Testament tell you don't judge. But he says you shall do no unrighteousness in judgment. In other words, if you're going to judge somebody, you judge righteously. And if you do not go because of a person's skin color. You do not go because of his stature or because they're a boy or because they're a little girl. No, you don't do that. That is unrighteous in judgment. Thou shalt not respect the persons of the poor, nor honor the persons of the mighty, but in righteousness thou shalt judge thy neighbor. He tells you can do this. Because we judge every day. We judge whether we should go inside or out. We judge whether we should associate with this person or not. We judge whether we want this job or this is what judgment means. We judge every day in so many ways. Now, he says, neither shalt thou go up and down as a talebearer among thy people. Don't go tittle-tattling everything you don't even know about, gossiping about things you cannot even verify. That's a talebearer. Telling about this, oh, I think she this way, I think she that way. I know it's tempting in many ways to do such a thing, but best to watch a person. If you're going to accuse them of anything, watch them and make sure you can point it out what they have done. You see two men going together, they go in the house, he stays over all night. Does that mean that they're walking out of their gender? At one time men could do that, it never had happened, never was even thought of. But nowadays, oh, they funny. Man, he be over his house all the time. Or she be over her house all the time. It's not right. We're going to stop right here. And he also says here, let's go a little bit further because we're about to get out of time here. And so he says now, he says, neither shalt thou stand against the blood of thy neighbor. I am that I am. Stand against the blood of thy neighbor. In other words, to the spilling of his blood. No, don't do that. Thou shalt not hate thy brother in thy heart. No, don't hate him. He still has something that he owes you. This has something to do with intelligence. And thou shalt in any wise rebuke thy neighbor and not suffer sin upon it. In other words, why are you doing this, man? You know God don't like this, or you doing this to me and I don't like it either. In other words, did not your Esau's tell you this, Christian? You tell him his fault. And if he repents, you have gained. That ain't even it. He says you tell him his fault that he might not sin. Or save him from the sin. Whether it be whatever he's trying to do. Tell your brother, your sister, don't do this. Don't go laying with that man because your virginity is everything. Man, don't go laying with that woman. She's a strange woman. She's married. Or she's a 304, as we would say. It would only ruin you before the Most High. And it could cause you to meet him in shame. This is what he means. So you all don't get it because you do not read the law. I ain't saying everybody, but most do not get it. And the heathen is being used by Satans. They're used by the Satans to try to deter you with all these different doctrines and things that you might incur on the social media, because this is Anunnaki, this is not his name, this is who the... No, what does the law says? What does the I Am say in the law that he's given to Moses? That counts more than anything, any historical account. And with that, if we keep those things that are right before the Most High, we will have peace.